Hey, what's up everybody? This is Bright bringing you my second video, my first informative video. It's not just about who I am. And this video is going to be about improving at Starcraft for pretty much every level of play. I got a lot of basic tips that anybody can follow, and then I've got some more specific stuff depending on like where you're at on the ladder and different ways that I feel can help you improve quite a bit and improve faster than somebody who's not really following a lot of the guidelines I put in here on how you can get better. So I kind of want to start off with tips for like the bronze through the platinum. If you're better than that, bear with me and I'll try and get to some of that stuff. But for like bronze through platinum players, I think it's really nice because you can improve at a really fast rate. Like you can see your progress from like bronze through platinum. You can see yourself improve very quickly. So here's just like some basics that I think will help you improve a lot. Um, when you're at a lower skill level, try and remember to always be building workers. And every time like you saturate a base, you should expand. And by saturated, I mean like 16 to 22 workers. Some maps it's different depending on how many close mineral patches there are, but don't really need to get into that. Like 16 to 22 workers I feel is a good number. And so if you're bronze through platinum, once you get to that on your minerals, expand. And try and stay under 500 minerals as long as you aren't maxed. Another thing for lower levels of play is scout a lot. Like constantly scout. Early with a worker, I'd suggest leaving a unit in front of your opponent's ramp or near it. If you're Protoss, build observers. If you're Zerg, build overseers and run them through your opponent's base. Drop down changelings. If you're Terran, go ahead and use a scan or two. Use like a floating factory or a floating barracks to scout. Just scout as much as possible and learn to react on what your opponent's doing. That's really going to help you a lot at low levels. Another thing is, at low levels of play, people often get kind of down on themselves because they feel like they're not getting better, or they can get like completely crushed by an opponent and feel bad about it. But so you've got to have a lot of confidence at low levels of play. Don't get cocky, but have enough confidence, because as long as you're sure that you can get better and that you want to improve, you're going to. Another thing is, at low levels of play, have like a specific opening planned for each matchup. So when you get into a game, you already know like the first step of your game. And a lot of good openers, like if you play Terran, do like a 1 rack expand into like 3 racks, double gas afterward. That's a really good opener. That's pretty safe and it'll help you a lot. For Protoss, do like a 1 gateway expand into a 3 gate robo. Um, for Zerg, work on like 15 pool, 16 hatch. Against Terran, I mean, if you're confident you can hatch first in low level play without losing to a bunker rush or like at early 2 racks or marine pressure. I know at like bronze through gold, people usually do a lot of cheesy builds. So the goal is kind of to do a safe build, yet still work on your macro. Like just a safe opener is really good. Avoid playing gimmicky and cheesy as much as possible at low levels play, because if you want to improve, you're gonna have to improve your mechanics before you get into like upper diamond masters area. Like if you've relied on cheesing all the way up into there, you're not gonna have success at diamond and masters. So just do safe play, macro play, and avoid being gimmicky and cheesy. Alright, that's about it for just the bronze to platinum level. For diamond and masters players, when practicing on ladder, try and work on certain parts of your game specifically through like an entire day of practice. Like if you have practice partners, you don't have to worry about this as much, and you can practice a specific build or like specific strategy styles against practice partners. But if you practice through mostly ladder, like try and be very specific in what you want yourself to do. Like for example, like one day tell yourself, all right, I'm going to work on a heavy macro death ball style play. So every game that you play, doesn't matter what race you play, try and get on 3 or more bases and get to that 200 food composition. Like that whole day, that should be your goal. Don't throw in cheeses, don't throw in timing attacks. Just strictly try and go for macro play, like 200 food. Then like the next day, think, all right, I'm going to work on like a harassment oriented style of play. So if you're like Terran, like today I'm going to work on, like cloak banshees and really smart drop play and try and keep your opponent moving all around. Like with Protoss, you can do like, okay, I'm going to work on like DT harass, warp prism, zealot harass, mortal drops, things like that. For Zerg, you can be like, okay, I'm going to work on Ling run bys, Mutalisk kitten run, burrowed infestors, stuff like that. Just work on strictly harassment that day if you're laddering. Like day 3, be like, alright, now I'm going to work on specific timing attacks. So like mostly 2-base timings is what I'm talking about here, not like your gimmicky cheesy stuff. Like I'm talking like Marine Tank Banshee off of like 2 bases, push like to contain a Protoss or something. Marine Marauder Medevac with like +1 and some SCVs like MVP recently did against Rain. For Protoss, like a 7-gate Blink Stalker, Mortal Sentry all in, Colossus 6-gate against a Terran, things like that. For Zerg, like the 12-minute Roach Ling Max, like the 2-base Ling Infestor or 2-base Muta, stuff like that. Like specific timing attacks that you have planned that should be kill moves or should damage your opponent enough that you can be ahead and play safe going into a macro game from there on. And then like the next day be like, okay, I've worked on all these other parts of my game. Today I'm going to work on specific cheeses. Like if I'm in a best of 3 and I need to win a game and throw out a cheese to keep them on their toes, like these are the type of builds that you should work on. Go ahead and just have fun with it. Be really cheesy, like 2-Rex Marine Marauder SCV train, or like Hellion Marauder SCVs against Zerg. Like proxy 2-gates, cannon rushes, 4-gates, Ling Roach all-ins, Ling Baneling all-ins, stuff like that. Just go ahead and work on a ton of cheeses on like, but the goal is to have a specific play style and specific builds that you're going to work on like all day long. That way it kind of stays in your muscle memory of your brain by repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again. If you change your build every single game, your execution is not going to improve as fast as if you repeatedly do the same type of builds over and over. If you have practice partners, you can avoid doing this without laddering. I mean, you can just play with the practice partner and work on the same build over and over. But a lot of people practice mostly from laddering. And so I feel if you're a ladder player, as long as you work on specifics and do them over and over to kind of build it into your brain, this is how I'm going to execute, this is how it should work, this is how I'll respond to this, I feel like it's going to help you a lot more. And then, like, for any level of play, it doesn't matter where you are, I got a lot of general tips that I feel should help a lot, that I know myself and a lot of other people have kind of talked about in interviews. You'll catch a player saying something like that. So while it's nice to have your own style of play, right now where we're at in Starcraft 2, a lot of pro players have already developed some of the best builds out there. Like, it's nice to use your own style, but honestly a lot of pros have already got builds that are really, really strong. So as much as you should throw your own flair into games, you should probably watch a lot of pro replays and kind of copy builds, or you can at least copy the bulk of a build and maybe alter it to be useful to yourself as well. Another thing is, like, if you don't have a great memory, write and or type on a text document specific builds, like with timings that you see out in replays, like when you take your gases, when you build your robo, when you build your starport, when you start stim, things like that. Just write them down, like with what the timer is on the game time and when you should be doing it. Start at the beginning or write with like the food count when you build this and the game time. Another thing that a lot of people have a problem with that I feel will help you improve a lot faster and practice better is nothing's imbalanced. Even if something in the game is imbalanced, it's not. Have a mindset that nothing's imbalanced, that you can defeat any build thrown at you as long as you react properly. As long as you're a heavy believer in different tweaks that you can make to your game plan, that you're not losing to imbalance, instead you're losing to a mistake you made, or you're losing because of like you didn't take advantage of a scenario where you were ahead or you had an advantage. So like one of the greatest players of all time in Warcraft 3 was W.E. Ted. He was an undead player, and undead was known by everyone as the weakest race, especially in like undead versus orc. It was actually imbalanced in Warcraft 3. But the player Ted, when he got asked what he thought about undead versus orc, he said it's not imbalanced. He said that undead players simply weren't trying hard enough and they weren't trying to learn new builds. And it actually turned out that Ted had probably the best undead versus orc record in pro gaming during the later years of Warcraft 3, and he thought of like two builds to use specifically against orc after the metagame stopped changing in Warcraft 3. He developed new builds like a Lich Tower Rush and Banshee, stuff that undeads were never really trying. But as long as you go in with the mindset that it's not imbalanced, you can improve far faster. Another thing, watch a replay when you lose the game. There's a lot of stuff you can learn. Like, try not to get angry at the end of a game if you're not sure why you lost. Instead, go into the replay and find spots in the replay where you're like, oh, okay, I made a mistake here. I got supply blocked there, or he took a hidden base here, and I should have seen that. Just find things that you can do better. Even when you win, there's usually spots in a game where you can say, oh, I should have done this. I could have done that a little bit better. I didn't need to, take the game this long. But it's okay to get upset when you lose, but don't let it affect your ability to learn from your mistakes. And if you need to take a break because you're upset about a loss, that's fine. But try and watch the replay afterward. Unless you know, like immediately after, you're like, oh, okay, I lost, and it's because I didn't scout him at this point, and he overdroned or something like that. I didn't pressure him here. So I mean, but if you don't know exactly why you lost, definitely watch the replay and look at it and see what you could do differently. Now the hardest thing when it comes to people like in their kind of pride, and it's actually pretty significant how much it can help you if you're struggling in a matchup specifically. When you lose to an opponent, like, and you're not sure what you're doing wrong or what you can do right, just ask them. Say, what could I have done differently? And there's a lot of people that'll tell you, or ask a player, what do other players do that play my race that gives you trouble to deal with? Maybe they'll tell you, oh, there's, a specific timing or something that I always struggle with. And then maybe you can find openers in like that race's play that you can utilize. So despite the fact you might have a lot of pride and have a hard time losing, if you do lose, just go ahead and ask the guy, what could I have done? I feel that'll help a lot. And you don't necessarily have to be practicing to improve either. That's another thing. Like, I advise watching player streams because you see firsthand what they do, and like watch replays. If you can get replays of like top pros of your race, definitely check them out. Learn timings, learn strategies. Now, there's a difference between watching like a player stream firsthand or replays and watching tournaments and VODs like an MLG or GSL. You should watch that mostly for entertainment, and you can get general ideas from it. But don't try and learn builds off of like watching an MLG or a GSL, because the observer's not going to be following the player the whole time that you need to be learning from. So try and keep those mostly for like entertainment, not for necessarily learning. Go ahead and get ideas from them, like, oh, that's a cool spot to drop, I didn't think of that. But don't like avoid watching player streams and replays. Those are going to help you a lot more. Then another thing, when it comes to practicing, a lot of people get burnt out. They feel like I need to take a break. I'm getting tired of playing this game. But you can still like improve and avoid getting burned out just by watching VODs and watching replays and watching people stream. It's actually helpful for your practice, and you can still be learning StarCraft without grinding away at playing massive games. So yeah, just go ahead and do that. And if you feel like upset after a loss, go ahead and take a break and do that same stuff too. Or if you feel like you aren't playing well, that's another thing. Like, a lot of people, they'll feel like they aren't playing well and they'll lose like 5 games in a row, and then they'll just keep playing until they win. But you shouldn't do that. You should actually take a break. Like, you're going to do a lot better and learn a lot more if you go into it feeling confident in how you're playing. If you're feeling down about how you're playing, you're not going to learn nearly as much from your playing, because you're going to let your emotions cloud your judgment. And, it's okay to play other games for fun, like non-competitive. Like, if you're getting burnt out, play something for fun. Don't play something where you feel the need to win. Like in StarCraft, if you want to be good and competitive, you're going to want to go into every game wanting to be the victor. But to avoid getting burnt out, play games that are for fun and not necessarily for competition. Like a lot of the StarCraft 2 guys in Korea, they say they play League of Legends for fun, and I used to play Heroes of New Earth a lot for fun. Or like Diablo, something like that. I think it'll help you a lot. But anyways, that's about all I've got for just basic ways to improve for kind of everybody. I hope some of you found this useful, and I'll try and do some more videos, maybe get some replays and talk about builds and stuff. But any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll also put like my Twitter and my email in the video description. And go ahead and email me or message me on Twitter if you've got any questions. Or since this is my first YouTube videos, go ahead and give me some tips. I realize, one, my webcam's not amazing quality. The lighting here in my room is quite poor as well, so that doesn't help. I realize I'm not sure how well my mic's, like, I think my mic's pretty good. I don't have like a super high-tech one, but SteelSeries headsets are pretty good, so I think the audio should be good. That's it. Thanks.